Whale Rider is a 2002 feature film by filmmaker Nicky Caro, centered on the modern-day descendants of New Zealand's Polynesian settlers, the Maori people. Once proud explorers and warriors, they now live here more modestly, marginalized by European colonization. At the heart of the story is the legend of ancient ancestor Paikea, who rode a whale from ancestral Hawaii to New Zealand, a symbol of strength, endurance, and hope. For Koro, the film's traditionalist grandfather, this myth represents a past greatness he hopes to reclaim for his people, but his vision is challenged by his granddaughter, Pai. Koro's son, the natural heir to the tribal chief role, has embraced modern ways, abandoning his heritage to pursue a career as an artist. His wife dies in childbirth as the film opens, giving birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Koro pins his hopes on the newborn boy as the future leader who will restore the tribe's pride. But tragedy strikes again, and the boy does not survive. Only the girl remains, and her father names her Paikea, before leaving her in the care of his parents, Koro and Nani. That name does not sit well with Koro. In his mind, it belongs to the male heir he had been waiting for. Though he's not an evil character, there's no good and evil in this movie, his resentment manifests as stubbornness, emotional distance, and at times outright cruelty toward Pai. But beneath his rigid exterior, his actions are fueled ultimately by love for his people, for his culture, and the future he envisions for them. Ironically, the hardships he imposes on Pai only make her stronger in the end. When Pai's father returns for a visit and reveals he is expecting another child with a woman in Germany, it further drives a wedge between him and Koro. Now desperate to restore the tribe's strength, Koro gathers all the firstborn boys of the community, hoping to find a worthy leader among them. Though Koro excludes Pai from learning tribal skills and traditions, relegating her to the more supportive role of the women, Pai refuses to back down. She finds ways to learn in secret. For instance, learning to spar from her uncle, a once skilled warrior, now more interested in relaxation and, let's say, recreational substances. But through Pai's example and determination, she rekindles interest in the old ways, even among the town's more laid-back members. This is where Whale Rider really excels, telling a deeply personal story that is rich in myth and tradition and personal stakes. It does not discard or diminish the old ways, but rather embraces their evolution. This growth is painful at times, authentic and deeply moving. There are no villains here, per se. In his way, Koro loves Pai, but he has to learn to see her for who she is inside. And that's something Pai must do for herself as well. And together, their efforts begin to synthesize something new, a new strand in the rope that binds them to their ancestors. Koro tests his trainees by having them retrieve a sacred whale tooth from the ocean, a symbolic act of great importance to him. When all of them fail, he loses faith, retreating into despair. But Pai, out on a boat one day with her uncle, finds the tooth. Nani hides it from Koro, knowing he isn't yet ready to accept what that means, that the true leader he seeks is his granddaughter. Koro, seeking guidance, mournfully calls out to the ancestral whales for help. They don't respond. But when Pai echoes his call, something deep in the ocean stirs. At her next school recital, Pai dedicates her performance to the old ways, hoping to honor Koro and mend that bridge. He never arrives, though. On his way, he discovers instead that a pod of whales, responding to their calls, has beached itself near their home. Seeing it as a disastrous omen, he forbids Pai from helping. It's his last stand against change. But his effort to save the whales all fail. Soon the people give up, leaving the stranded creatures to die. But then Pi steps forward. And you can guess what happens. The movie is called Whale Rider, after all. She urges the lead whale back under the sea, and the rest eventually follow. And Pi, in mythic form, disappears beneath the waves with them. Pi's sacrifice and determination awaken something ancient and tied now to something new. And when Nanny finally gives Koro the recovered whale tooth, confirming Pi as the chosen leader, the truth finally breaks through Koro's stubbornness, like scales falling from his eyes. The beached whales were not a test so much for Pi.
It was a taste. But for Koro this time.
As it was a test for Koro. Can he accept a broader vision of leadership, of tradition, even of love? In the end, he does. A lesson many Koros today could stand to learn from. Koro's biggest hurdle, perhaps, is his need to assign blame. But the film's lesson is clear. Blame is a poison. It separates. The whales did not beach themselves because of Pi. She simply called out to them, as Koro did. So which of them is really to blame? Nobody. The ancestors answered their mutual call to bring them together, so they could finally see each other as they truly were, the past and the future, bound together. Pi's father returns with his European wife, embracing the people and culture he once left behind. The tribe, now re-energized, sails together, their traditions not erased, but strengthened. And what struck me in the end was how many lighter-skinned members were also among the tribe, not as outsiders, but as part of a growing, thriving tradition. European and Maori descendants together in New Zealand, with this new generation no less proud of a shared heritage. And while Pi is careful in the film to point out that she's not a prophet, her character has some mythic proportion to it, one which reminded me of other characters and other stories where old traditions evolve to jumpstart a new era, with main characters who are catalysts, who take the best part of something ancient and revive it and strengthen it and give it new life.
I have a new law and a new hope.
And in doing so, provide a new vision to move forward for a people. A new hope, to coin a phrase. This is a powerful film, one that challenges young people to embrace their culture in new ways that are meaningful to them and inclusive of them, with living, evolving traditions, not something stale and carved in stone. Paikea, the original ancestor, was himself an agent of change, we see, and he left an old world behind to discover something new, while always serving as a connection to that past. Before I forget, I want to give a shout out to a fellow YouTuber, Rock Wilk, who reminded me about Whale Rider. I saw it when it came out in 2002, but I had been saving it, mentally archiving it for when my daughter was old enough to watch it with me. And that might be still in the future somewhere, but given the way this channel has evolved, I was excited to revisit it. And Rock mentions that he gives this movie to young women in his life sometimes, and I can see why. It's a great film with a great hero that young women might relate to as they face the realities of our world that are not always fair. And a great story always applies itself to the problem that we all share of being human. These challenges aren't restricted to Maori people or anyone else. It's a human story at the end of the day, and we can all benefit. So watch Whale Rider, especially if you're a parent, especially if you're a parent of a daughter. Maybe even watch it with them if they're old enough. It's magical. And it's powerful. And leave a comment if you do. Okay. I'll see you next time.